Well, hello and welcome to the conversation. It's Blue Monday. It's said to be the most depressing day of the year. But if this is the day we're going to open up and have a conversation about mental health, just how we're going to have that conversation, where can we turn to? What is the conversation that we can have? What's the sort of language that we can use? And of course, where can we point people to if they need help? Because of course, you and I, we're just people off the street. We're not the experts, but the experts are out there. One of them is with us now, actually. The CEO of Calm, Simon Gunning, joins us. Simon, how are you, sir?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Happy Blue Monday. Now, this is said to be the most depressing day of the year. I think there's a little bit of marketing spiel in there around trying to get people to maybe buy a holiday or think about spending some cash. But, January's a long month, isn't it? A lot of people obviously have spent a lot of money over Christmas. People are worried about maybe what the year's got ahead of them. And of course, the weather's not been absolutely fantastic because it's winter and it goes dark quite early as well. So maybe our vitamin D levels aren't where we're at. You can understand, can't you, that people can struggle at this time of year.
Definitely. And then you add dry January, you add the excitement of Christmas and the break, and now you're back to it, and it can feel like an endless slog, can't it? Especially like you say, it's dark at like 4 o'clock, and it's cold and it's wet, and you're broke because you spent too much money at Christmas. Yeah, you can absolutely see it.
In terms of conversations that people might be having today, whether Blue Monday's the day they want to have that conversation, they want to save it for tomorrow, they want to save it for March or September. Organizations like yours are keen to say that when those conversations take place, that people are informed as to the availability of resources that are out there, of helplines that are out there, so that we don't have to deal with our own mental health problems on our own.
And I think it's a good thing that these kind of artificial events exist. If it gives one person the opportunity to find a reason to offer help or ask for it, then it's fine. I think the stuff that punctuates the rest of the year has other reasons to exist, rather than a marketing ploy to try to get you to buy stuff. Things like World Mental Health Day, things like Suicide Prevention Day, those kind of things have real kind of reasons to exist, and they were born, I think, at a time when conversations were far more rare than they are now, and that's something that we've experienced not only through lockdown but prior to lockdown as well. Is that the propensity for people, or the kind of the feeling of permission for people to have conversations about what's going on between their own ears, or asking other people what's going on between theirs, has changed. It is easier, and maybe the need for these kind of artificial prods become less, but maybe as they become less needed, maybe they become even more useful, because it does lead us to start thinking about the people around us. But what we at Calm are really keen to stress, and maybe it's a little bit kind of trite, but that with the case of World Suicide Prevention Day, for example, we want to make it very clear that every day is World Suicide Prevention Day. And I know how that sounds. I know how cliched that is. But what we mustn't do is we mustn't look at Blue Monday or any of the other construct days and say, well, that's job done then, because it very, very clearly isn't.
Absolutely. And it may well be that a conversation that's heard today or may have been caught up with, a week later on social media might be the starting point for someone to get that help. Can I ask you as well? I think sometimes when there's a danger around give someone a day, that's sort of like it's all or nothing. Today's the day to talk about your mental health, because of course there's many people, if they've been battling issues for months or even years, those first steps towards a conversation, I guess, don't revolve around one day or waiting for a week or a month. That will come out in different ways, and I wanted to get your handle on that conversation and where it might start, both into how people might start a conversation if they want to talk about their own feelings, or how you might engage with someone whose mood has been a little bit different, that you've noticed they've been a little bit off, that they've been cancelling plans and so on and so forth. That those first steps to engage and to trust that individual have got to be crucial, haven't they?
They really have, and a really good way to do that, to get used to the kind of the dynamic of those conversations, which can feel very alien, is to ask somebody else how they're doing. We, as a species, have become very successful by looking after each other. Our ridiculously overspec'd frontal lobes have given us language, and through that we've managed to communicate and combine to put one at the front of the cave with the stick and one at the back of the cave with the kids. Do you know what I mean? That communication is so deeply embedded in our species' success that we literally get the release of happy chemicals into our brains when we help someone else. We literally do. And we found that in research a couple of years ago, more than 80% of men that we asked in the UK want to be the person that's there for their friends, for their mates. Now, we can combine that with asking for help, because one of the greatest ways to ask for help is to start leaning into those conversations with other people. The conversation comes back around to you. And we get that, we get a real payoff, a chemical payoff from looking after people, and then we get looked after ourselves. Of course, this is to presuppose that you've got a functioning group of friends or family that you can talk to, and lots of people sadly don't. So your GP wants to help. Talk to your GP. Medication is extremely useful, and talking therapies are extremely, profoundly useful. If you've done that and you want some extra help, if you don't want to do that and you want help outside of formal medical health care, there are fortunately masses of resources that you can use. And if you want to start looking at that, then I would encourage anybody listening or watching to go to the calmzone.net, which is Campaign Against Living Miserably's website. That's our website. And we've got loads of materials there about how to start conversations, how to ask a question and how to ask it twice, and how to listen properly if you're concerned about someone. There's nothing worse than asking a question and not listening. So we've got kind of technique tips there, but then we've got practical advice around specific things that might be worrying you, whether that's debt or addiction or kind of all the stuff we're talking about today on Blue Monday, or many other things. And then, of course, there's our helpline, which is open from 5 to midnight, 7 days a week. It is free to call. It is staffed by trained professional people who are a part of Calm, and it is anonymous and non-judgmental. So if you need to speak to somebody you haven't spoken to before, you can talk or type to the Calm helpline 7 days a week from 5 to midnight.
0800 58 58 58. That's 0800 58 58 58. I'll put that in the notes below the YouTube posting as well. Such a crucial thing, Simon, because I think for a lot of people who maybe aren't in a place to start thinking about their mental health, or they dismiss it still as, something that's become a little bit trendier to talk about, that maybe haven't got into that headspace where they're aware of maybe their own mental health issues or problems they've had in the past. I often say to them, that's fine if you're not ready to be there in terms of yourself. But what happens if a friend or a colleague or a family member comes to you and starts to talk about their mental health? How will you respond then? And actually, it's interesting there, that idea that we almost have to educate ourselves in finding those resources, so that when someone does come to us and say, I've been feeling suicidal, or I think I'm experiencing depression, that you can say, well, let's book an appointment with a GP. I'll come with you if you want to. Let's have a look at this website. Let's go on to the Hub of Hope and find some services within the local area. If we have that skill, it allows us to show a little bit more empathy, as opposed to the opposite thing, which is to go, what are you asking me for? I don't know anything about this, which would be, the worst response, if you like.
That would be pretty difficult, wouldn't it? I mean, I guess kind of what springs to mind, brains, we've all got them, and they need maintenance. Our own brains and the brains around us need a bit of care. It's a hard time to be alive. It's really, really difficult. It's very hard to compare where each one of us is as individuals to people who are in a worse state than we are. It's really difficult to try to shift your brain to not look at what's going around you and wish you were somebody else who was having a better time. It's really hard to look around you and think, for example, around lockdowns, around COVID, around the last couple of years. We will get through this. This will end. This will be over at some point. And we've made it this far. We can make it to the end. But sometimes it's so hard to lose sight of our relative position of happiness, of possession, of safety, the most important element. We can lose sight of that. And so educating our brains, and that's your brain, that's my brain, that's everybody's brains, to be able to navigate these really choppy waters at the moment I think it's so important to do so, because so many people are suffering so badly. Look after your own brain and look after those ones around you.
Absolutely. Thecalmzone.net, but also where'syourheadat.org has got a lot of resources on there as well. Where'syourheadat.org. Again, all those links will be in there. I wanted to talk about the pandemic because it's the background of so many people's lives, and of course the mental health problem and issues spikes that we've seen during this time too. I think at the start of the pandemic there was a sense, Simon, that there'd be a day where suddenly there were no new cases of COVID and we could all skip out of our houses and go back to the pub and back to our places of work and everything will be normal again. It's quite clear, though, isn't it, that the end of the pandemic will not end in that way. There's a very different sort of trajectory that we're on. And I wonder whether or not maybe we have to, our brain almost makes up our mind about how something will end. And I guess that's a problem now that people are getting the sense that it's not going to end that way, and actually it might just be that normal life just kind of resumes slowly, and then we look back in 3 years time maybe and we go, that was weird. But I guess we've got to have the emotional intelligence to deal with that no matter what comes our way.
Well, there's that thing, isn't it, that we all cast ourselves as the star in our personal movie, right? So, and maybe it's Shakespeare and Dickens that have ruined it for us by creating a narrative that has an end. Maybe actually Netflix is doing it right by creating series which never end and go on, and there's no kind of conclusion, because largely that's kind of what life is like. Like everyone else, when lockdown happened, I kind of expected there to be a unlock day, and it would be a sunny day, I would imagine, and the pubs would be selling beer for free, and we'd all be given a balloon, and out we'd go and have a lovely time and meet up with all the friends we hadn't seen. And of course, that is not the way. The way is gradual, and the changes, really interestingly, can be more frightening. So when we went into the first lockdown 125 years ago, as it feels, helpline use went up by 40% straight away. People with existing mental health conditions, certainly anybody with anxiety, people unable to get to their full medical health care, clearly were put into a position of real fear. But people who'd never considered what was going on between their ears before as well were calling helplines because they needed someone to talk to. So that was a 40% increase. When the initial one was relaxed, the numbers went up again, because you kind of taken from a position of danger to a position of safety. Then we're told, come out of safety and go back into danger. And for lots of people, that was really, really difficult. And there is no absolute shut-off, is there? There's a gradual return to where we were in the past. And I think that we have to try to think about where we are now and where we're going to be in the immediate short term, because to think any longer is going to be really, really hard. We're not, the cities are not burning down. I witnessed a fight in Lidl over a jar of peppers 2 years ago. And you kind of think, well, what's going to happen next? We're going to have zombies running around the corner, and I'm going to have to do handbrake turns in the car park. And none of that happened, unfortunately. But it's going to be a long time still. But we've got this far. We're going to get through to the end, and things will change.
Absolutely. So just as we wrap up, one of the important things to say is that sometimes wholesale changes, people are apprehensive about that no matter what, whether for good or bad in some cases as well. But a lot of the advice actually that people are giving out is that you don't have to make huge changes. Something like going for a walk, spending a little bit of time away from social media, or being a little bit more proactive in communication with maybe people you've not caught up with for some time. Those small differences can add up. And actually, if you put yourself at the center of that, and sometimes be a little bit selfish as well with yourself, those small steps can be the beginning of something much more profound.
They really can. But it's really hard to constantly battle the Stockholm syndrome, the falling in love with your captor that the last couple of years have done. I had a ticket for football a couple of weeks ago on New Year's Day, and it was on telly. But there's nothing I love more than going to football matches, and I was tempted not to go. Really was. You kind of stand at the door and go, maybe I'll just stay. Maybe I'll just watch. Just giving yourself that little push, and that's maybe a very too big a deal to go to be with 60,000 people watching Arsenal lose to Man City, but there are other things which are just small little pushes you can give yourself. Don't be tough on yourself. If that little push, like you say, is going for a walk around the block. I'm going for a walk with a mate this afternoon, and we'll probably end up standing outside a pub with a pint. I think it's really important that we try to ease ourselves back in with small gestures to ourselves, to create that change in behavior that doesn't perpetuate this really understandable position where we've got safety and we've got fear. Let's just start bringing those things together, or safety and danger. We can start to bridge that gap.
Absolutely. Whether it's Blue Monday, whether it's next week, whether it's next month, or at any point within the next year, the Calm have got loads of resources online. Let's point people in the direction of the website, thecalmzone.net. There's loads of information as well on our website through where'syourheadat.org. And you mentioned as well that the hotline, which is available, the number for that one, 0800 58 58 58. CEO of Calm, Sam Gunning. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Blue Monday. Thank you for your time. I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Lovely. Thanks very much. Cheers.